You are listening to the Good Girl Podcast. I am Cameo King, your host. The Good Girl Podcast, a podcast that is redefining what it means to be good through uncomfortable truths. I call those uncomfortable truths confessions. So every week we have someone on sharing their confession. This week, or I'll say this over the next couple of weeks, we have a series that's focused on marriage confessions. And so these confessions all come from folk who've been married. And so we have a set of 3. This is number 2 in the series of 3. If you didn't hear number 1, go back and listen to it. It was good. It's funny, we may have a number 4, y'all. Because my inbox, y'all come through with these inboxes and in these confessions. But it's funny, somebody posted, I think on my Facebook wall, she was like, oh girl, I got a lot of confessions because this marriage thing, it gets ghetto. That was so funny to me. But my goal in this series is to really, talk about uncomfortable truths when it comes to marriage. I think society, the American westernized society, very much focuses on family and marriage. And I believe there is a romanticized version of marriage, but we need the real deal, right? I think people are suffering in marriages. I think people are not happy. And I think some healing needs to happen, but there needs to be truth first, right? And also to let you know you're not alone thinking your marriage is ghetto, right? So that is the goal of this series. So I hope you really enjoyed this. And as always, before we hop into the actual confession, I like for you all to get to know the guest a little bit. So we're going to have you listen to a little bit about who Meg Watt is. Listen up. This is Meg Watt.
I am a healer, first of myself, then of the community.
A large part of her life centers around healing, specifically sound healing.
The sound healing came about because I'm known as that person who's always trying something new. Like if it's healing involved, I'm gonna try it.
Sound healing uses vocal vibrations or instruments like gongs to relax your mind and body, possibly even healing individuals from physical ailments.
Because the sound actually penetrates your cells. It works on a biological level. So it clears any blockages that you have in your energy channels.
Meg also includes the healing work in her corporate job as a healthcare IT consultant.
Every contract that I have for work as a healthcare IT consultant, I've introduced mindfulness to every single team that I have. So we do mindfulness before every meeting. And the feedback is incredible. They're like, your voice is so calming. And how come no one ever did this with us before? This is so great. And like everybody I talk to, I just fill them up. Whenever they leave me, they are full. They are rejuvenated. They are refueled to just go do whatever it is they want to do.
I asked Meg why more people aren't healing themselves. She says it's rooted in fear.
It's uncomfortable. It's painful. And there's so many sayings that, you prefer the devil you know than the devil you don't.
Now that you know a little bit more about Meg, we're going to hop into her confession. But first, really quick, 2 things. Make sure you're following us on the gram, on Instagram. It is at Good Girl Podcast. It is spelled correctly, so follow us on the gram. But it's not just a repeat of what you hear now on the podcast. You actually have an opportunity to engage into some of the topics, because I know some of these can be challenging to how we think and how we feel. So I am always excited and interested in hearing people's perspective. And we get a lot of pushback. We get a lot of pushback. But I think that is great intellectual rigor is what I'll call it. I think it is great to hear from the community and how y'all really feel about these podcasts. And also, I always love to inspire and share, things that I'm going through on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, and even my own personal confessions. And I hope that you can relate. And I also hope that you feel like you are not alone. And not just my confessions, but when I see confessions around these interwebs, I share them as well. And another thing, so that was 1, this is 2, we'll eventually begin accepting video confessions, right? And I know that can be challenging, but I think there is something about being able to show who you are and also confess. Like, that's a different level of healing. That's why I always applaud the people that come on this show. I do. Because it's no joke, because the world can rip you in two because you're vulnerable. And so I applaud that, and I just admire the community of y'all who continue to keep folks safe when I say that. Like, when they share their confessions and you get to see a different part of a person. So that's that. And now let's hop into her confession. But first, listen up. Do you own a business? Do you have a product you're trying to sell? Is there something you want to get in front of our faithful listeners? I know you do. The Good Girl Podcast would be happy to partner with you to help grow your business. Just as you are hearing my voice right now, I could be sharing about your great new product. So if you're interested in the unique ways the Good Girl Podcast can consistently increase your sales, let me know. Slide in my DM on Instagram or send an email to info@goodgirlradio.com. Again, that email address is info@goodgirlradio.com. I'm so excited to have Meg. Hey!
Hey girl, hey.
Hey girl, hey. I feel like that is the new greeting. Hey girl, hey.
I feel like it's so enduring. Like you it's like a hug, but it's a virtual hug.
It
Hey, girl,
is.
hey.
It is. I'm excited about this conversation because of who you are. And also because you're a bison, you know.
Hey, ain't you?
You know. I heard quick diversion. I heard that only old Howard says that now. Like, new Howard doesn't do that.
What do they do?
Somebody, like, it was so funny, and I'm sorry, audience, but I just want to share this. But this one person said he saw a younger Howard student with a Howard shirt on and yelled across the way. It was like, "HU," and they just looked at him like he was crazy. So he walked up to him and was like, how come you ain't respond? Like, probably feeling hurt, embarrassed.
Right.
And they literally said, "Oh, we're new Howard. We don't do that."
It's a lot. It's a lot going on with new Howard. Yeah.
Listen, I don't know if that's true for it in its entirety, but I'm gonna ring a new Howard by their neck if they embarrass me. You gonna embarrass me?
Man, I yelled that once in a South African airport, and somebody was like, "You know," I'm like, "That's what's up."
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Went on a tangent. But again, I'm excited to have you here. Excited to have you a part of the series, and we're gonna hop right into it. And just ask you the question off the bat, Meg. So, what is your confession?
My confession is that due to my insecurities, I thought my husband was cheating on me.
Girl, what?
Yes. Oh, he was out till 4 a.m. Knocked out though.
Knocked out though. So I know there's a backstory to this, and it just doesn't start there. But I just want to highlight like what you said, because we hear these things like trust your gut, trust your intuition, all things that I'm assuming that you were trusting when you thought your husband was cheating on you.
Man, sometimes trauma usurps your intuition.
And everybody got trauma.
That's a bar. I really felt that because I am in tune with my intuition now. Mm-hmm. But I would say during that time, I wasn't really in tune like that. You know, my gut was my anxiety. Mm-hmm. My gut was my PTSD symptoms from insecurities with another relationship.
So talk to us about the trauma, about the PTSD before you got to that insecurity of believing that your husband was cheating on you.
Yeah. So when I started therapy at the age of 23, it was because I was in a very, very toxic relationship. And that guy cheated on me. And like, just a little side note, like there's a book by Robert Weiss called How to Get Out of the Doghouse. And it explains that women who endure infidelity in a relationship share the same PTSD symptoms as a soldier returning from war. Like that has been proven, research. Okay. So I was experiencing those symptoms. I still remember the day he called me, where I was when he told me he cheated on me. And he was telling me because his apartment was burning down and it was karma. So he felt like he had to right this wrong.
So that was
So I don't even know if I ever found out.
I know that's the only reason.
Yeah. So I found that out. So I immediately started having these symptoms, like just started feeling like the ball's going to drop every moment of the day. Like I didn't know then, but that was anxiety. And so, I ended up fast forward, years later in this relationship with my now husband, his fine ass. And it was early in our relationship. We were dating and we had just got back in town from one of his friends' weddings. And I already had to guard up when I was down there at the wedding. I'm like, okay, who I'm gonna see, who I'm gonna run into down here, who I got to prove myself to.
Don't be off. Don't be up. And we even probably had a conversation like, you gonna tell me, don't have me out here.
That's right. Don't have me looking stupid. That's like my number one request. You know what I mean? Like my husband can really come to me and be like, I would like other women. And I'll be like, okay, let's talk about it. But don't catch me off guard, bro. And don't have me looking stupid in front of nobody else. So, okay. That trip was cool. Like everything was great. Everybody loved me. Like it was awesome, In the airport in Detroit. We back in Detroit. The guard is down. And out of nowhere, this girl shows up like, hey. And so he had gone out on a date with this girl, unbeknownst to me, while we were dating.
I just want to make sure people understand the scene, because the fact that I had my guard up this entire weekend, I prepped emotionally for it. I'm sure you probably have conversations with yourself in the mirror beforehand. If this chick say this, I'm ready. Like you got your arsenal ready, right?
I got my Issa Rae raps. Like you fly, you good, you got this.
Right. And then the minute you put it, literally the second you put everything down, right? You unload the pistol, you just
unload the pistol, then here she comes.
Here you come.
Here she comes to the airport. And what made it worse, my husband and I laugh at this today, but what made it worse is this man
okay.
He sees her coming and sees me looking at her. He's like, oh shit. Like he says it just like that. Like, I know I'm caught. So, I mean, to this day, we've had conversations about it, but it took a lot of work, right? So after that moment, I'm like, okay, it's just a date. I don't really care. I know there's nothing going on here, right? But now I got to begin this healing process, which is equivalent to coming back from war. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we're in this relationship and things are going great, but you hanging out with coworkers? Which ones? Like who gonna be there? Can I come? Like now I got all the questions.
Because it opened that wound back up.
That wound.
But did you consider it? But like, even though it was just a date, this was prior to you guys getting married. This was, and I know there's a debate. We actually had a conversation about this on one of the previous podcasts, but about dating multiple people. So did you consider it cheating? And maybe he didn't consider it cheating?
No, I didn't consider it cheating, but my body responded like it was cheating. Like when you look at it, no. I mean, that's just how everybody's kind of like shooting a bunch of shots,
Yeah.
Until one lands and then you focus on that one. Like I know for a fact there's nothing good. I mean, like at that moment with us, I mean, he knew it was a wrap. This was just one of those random things that's just kind of like, I was consulting. I was working in another state at the time. Again, we were still early on dating. Okay. And so, yeah, of course he could go out on a date with other people. I don't know if we'd agreed to that, but that just would have been on us to not have had that conversation. So there was no fault in my opinion, but the body and the brain could not tell the difference.
Yeah. Okay. And so you were beginning to say how it showed up, right? Even though, again, just laying the groundwork so we understand. So you had trauma from a previous relationship. Yeah. You met your husband, and then you found out sounds like it was something hidden, but it came to surface that he dated, respectfully somebody else, or you guys were talking in the early stages, but this wound was opened back up. And so it causes you to go back, right? Go back to Meg, go back.
Right, right. And I mean, there had been so much healing done. So like that's the thing that I do want people to realize is that you don't start the healing, then that wound is really like a gaping hole, right? It's just continuing to bleed, 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 bleed all day. But once you start the healing process, the wounds get smaller and smaller. So when it did get activated that second time, I literally put together a treatment plan and I communicated to my husband, like, this is what it's going to look like. Like, I may need you to tell me where you are. I may need you to tell me my ass is fat. Like, these are the things, affirmations, as I'm working through these things. I didn't just come and say, you do this, this, this. And I'm like, this is what I'm doing. And this is what I need from you.
That's very I'm gonna say advanced because I think it takes, I know you said healing had already been done, but I guess what I'm observing is what the healing produced. It allowed you to be highly aware of what you were feeling, what was happening, and the potential path you could go down. Yeah, the potential path you could go down within yourself, and then how that showed up in your relationship. But then, in addition to that, that also allowed you to make a plan and communicate clearly. This is what I need, and this is why. And like taking on that ownership and that responsibility, like that is in another galaxy. But it's a shame that it's in another galaxy because that's how we should really show up. But
I know, but I do have 12 years and 30 plus healing modalities in the game. Like I do realize I'm not like the typical person who has not done any work. I'm just not. So, and I think that's why our marriage is thriving and that's why we were able to navigate these insecurities because it's literally everything that happens, there's a treatment plan in place. And there's never any competition. It's like, look at this as a sickness, sweetie. This insecurity is a sickness. Meg knows that it's illogical and you are freaking perfect. Like Meg knows that. But wounded Megan, the wound is open now. So we got to care for it. We got to put some bandages on it. We got to do the work. We got to heal it.
Yeah. So how else did it show up? Because I think where you were going or what you began to share was that it wasn't, your insecurities weren't as a parent. I think that we traditionally think insecurities show up as, right? Because you said it was just a thought. It was just like, oh, the question. So you want to work? Who do you work with again?
Yeah. So yeah, it was really, it was three main things, right? It was needing the constant reassurance. So like, tell me that you don't want any other woman. Like, and my husband really, he's like, but if I say it, you just told me to say it. So it's not really the same. I'm like, actually, it is. I'm telling you, it's the same. Just say it right now. You can say it right now. And it will relieve so much stress and worry and anxiety for me, bro. Like, I'm giving you the keys. That's the other thing of this. I'm giving you all the answers to the test. Just ace it.
Yeah.
So that was the first way. And then the second way is I was going on his social media, like I'm checking who's liking everything, and I know that's toxic. I know that's dysfunctional. Like, but that's how the insecurity manifested in my life. And then the third way was just basically the questions, the investigation. And at one point he was like, I just hope it's not always like this, kind of frustrated. And I'm like, I hope so too, sweetie. But I feel confident that we're doing the work. Like even in the midst of super calm, super logical. Like, yeah, I know this is jacked up for you, bro. But like, you kind of have something to do with it, a little bit, kind of, sort of. Like, bear with me,
That was funny. It's okay. I feel confident though that we're gonna get through it. So if you could just let me sit and work with me, okay? Yeah, that is something for the books, right? I mean, it is. I just think both men and women experience trauma in relationships before we get to the one that we decide that we want to spend our life with, we want to build a life with. And I don't know if we know how deep it goes and how it'll show up, and the fact that it really isn't them, but it's one person projecting.
Yeah.
And then because the other thing, Meg, is you had to be vulnerable enough to say, I know this is me.
Yeah.
I know this is me. And I'm not saying, I don't like the word easier, but I understand the structures of our society. And so when I say it may be easier for women to be vulnerable with their men about them cheating or about this fear of cheating, I don't know if it's the same way for men. Right.
Mm.
And so, and I know we're just talking about cheating, but there are so many layers to relationships. And we
Yeah.
understand that vulnerability and that safe space, because that's another piece of marriage. Because if he wasn't who he was,
Yeah.
like he may have been like, oh, well, that's your problem. Deal with it on your own. You know, I love you. I don't have to read
Yeah.
you.
Or he could have been like, well, if you think I'm cheating anyway, I might as well go cheat. You know, like a lot of men take that road as well. It's very cowardly, but that is their expression of hurt and pain too. And I've communicated to my husband, it's traumatic to be with somebody insecure in the relationship. I know because I've been there. So I also was apologizing to him along that journey too. Like this is a sickness and I'm working on it. And I apologize that this is where I am. You know, and I think that when you mention vulnerability, that's something I learned in therapy. And it was in 2012. You know, some of those main lessons that you learn, I remember. So Mike Brown had just been murdered and I wanted to cry at work. And I couldn't. I wanted to hold my pain in. And my therapist just told me like the real strength is in vulnerability. Like you can be authentic and you can vulnerably be who you are, then that's the real strength because nobody can one up you. So yeah, I mean, you have to be vulnerable with your spouse. And then I'll also say this, like just about our relationship. At one point, I told you I was getting over a cold, so I'm gonna try not to laugh too much because it gets me coughing. But at one point, my husband said, "I just feel like it's always work." And this was maybe in like year 2 of the marriage. And again, I just responded and I was like, yeah, you know, it is. But think about the foundation that we're laying though, bro. Like think about when we can be on autopilot in these streets. And now we're on autopilot. It's year 5. And I'm not even saying the journey was rough, but it was just like this is what putting in the work looks like. We had a mentor tell us before we got married, you know, your marriage is like a business. Like literally, you need to come up with your vision, your mission statement, your goals. What are your plans for the next 5 years? What are your plans for the next 10 years? And be intentional about building the relationship. So I told my husband, I'm like, you know, we're probably right now, I would say we're probably in like the 5th or 6th grade in terms of education and knowing each other. But like, I want to get a PhD in my husband, and I want him to get a PhD in me. You feel me? So it's about the journey. It's about the journey.
When you phrase it like that, about understanding that it is a journey and you're not going to know everything, and it could be a subject that you fail at, and you need to go back and get some tutoring in.
Yeah, that's okay.
When it comes to your spouse, and when it comes to understanding, like even what you two want the marriage to look like do we even have those conversations like, oh yeah, I love you, you love me, but do we know, do we it literally, so one of the other, so I don't know if this is gonna I don't know what order they're gonna play in, but one of the other conversations in terms of the series on marriage, one of the guests said, you know, there's so much pressure to get married, and this was from the Christian perspective, like in the church, and she said, we got there. And she said on day 2, she was like, okay, what's next? Like that was, and realizing that we don't, like nobody talked to us about a plan. Nobody talked to us about like, what do we do next? It was like, we have arrived and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is so pertinent, bro. And it's the same thing with parenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So many people think they don't need a parenting class. Well, how would you not need a parenting class when you take a class to do every little thing else? You watch a YouTube video to use OneNote. You watch a YouTube video to do everything in your life, but you don't think to Google how to be a good parent. 10 characteristics of good parenting, right? So it's the same thing with a marriage. All you got to do is Google top 10 healthy characteristics of a marriage. And they're going to break it down. They're going to say finances. You have to have a healthy financial relationship. Okay. How do we get a healthy financial relationship? There was a lot of tears paying off $127,000 in student loan debt. There were a lot of budget meetings where I wanted to quit. But we had to work through that. We had to learn how each other looks at money, the relationship we have with money, and then go from there. Okay. Intimacy. You have to have good intimacy. How do you build your intimacy? Read a book, watch a video, go to couples therapy, find a sex therapist. Like, it's just too many resources out here now. Like, communication. Everybody pretty much knows what problems they have, but they act like they don't know how to Google to get the answers. And at this point, if you have a degree and you don't start with therapy, I'm just confused. Like, do you want the marriage to work or not?
Or not? I don't want to go too deep, but it's like I think we are I'll say this. I think we are in a new space of understanding how great marriage can be. I think we are redefining what marriage looks like. Where maybe our grandparents very much had a transactional relationship. Some of them, I'm not saying all of them, but it was understood, it was accepted, and there was peace there because that's how we understood marriages to be, transactional. You cook the food, you take care of the kids, I bring home the money, right? Yeah. And it was understood, it was accepted. But I really believe because we're evolving as a race. Not as a race, as a human.
For sure.
And so I think we're definitely moving in a space of how deep can this love really go? How healthy can we really be in this? Is this healthy for me? Is this something I really want to do? Should I do it? Or am I just getting married because I think that's what I should do when I love you and I should make myself without you,
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people who that is why they get married. They need dual income. They want dual income. And they have all these requirements for a husband. I'm not going to even get into that, but yeah, there is definitely a change coming. Even I would say it's starting with millennials though, just because there's a lot of Gen Xers who just piggybacked off the boomers. And I asked my mom straight up, like, what were your intentions for your marriage? Like, did you guys have, intentions laid out? And she was like, no. So, I mean, they loved each other, I'm sure. They were married 40 years before my dad died. But intention is something that when you have time to do the research, to do the reading, it can be a really, really powerful thing. And you can really let your guard down. You can be yourself. And I have like these events that I curate with couples that I think are aligned with some of our values. And one of the questions that came up, we had like 250 years of marriage in the house. And one of the questions that came up is, what do you wish you would have known before you got married that you know now? And one of the wives was like, I wish I knew how important it was to do the work on myself before I got married. So whoever's listening, don't be bringing all that baggage into your marriage. No, what I mean by that is be aware of your baggage. Know all the compartments in your baggage. Know the brand of your baggage. Know when it's maintenance needed. You know what I mean? Like everybody has baggage.
Yeah.
And if you're Black, you're getting traumatized pretty much every day, whether it's on a large or a small scale. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's really just about what is your tool set? What's in your toolkit to manage what is coming your way? And do you have a dope partner?
You said a don't? Oh, you said dope.
If you got a dope partner, like I tell people all the time, my husband and I are like Michael and Scotty. Like people are like, who's Michael and who's Scotty? And I'm like, it depends on the situation, homie. Depends on the play. We both lean on each other when we need to, depending on what's going on. So yeah,
that's good. And I like the fact too how you reframed the idea of because I challenged this, right? This idea of needing to be whole before getting married, right? And I said that doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah,
because I just know no shades of people. But first of all, no one will ever be whole before they get married. But I just know two effed up people that got together and they living in holy matrimony. You know what I'm saying? So I don't, I don't know if I wholeheartedly, and also because what the question I asked is, what then is the purpose of love, right? If you have to be this image of perfection before we get together, that means you aren't necessarily requiring me to love me through my mess, right? Or love me through my insecurities. So I loved how you reframed. Okay, you're gonna push back on it. Look like you're gonna push back on it. So give me one quick second before you push back.
Yeah, no. I was just gonna say love you through your growth, not like
Oh,
your pain, but like love
okay.
you through your journey. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's better. But I also like how you reframed it in terms of it's not about like getting to a destination per se. It's about acknowledging that I have these issues.
Yeah.
And I know I have these issues. Like, this is where my blind spot is. So I'm letting you know in advance. I'm aware of my blind spot. I'm working on my blind spot. Can you handle my blind spot?
Yeah.
I think that's just a different reframing of how we approach relationships.
Yeah. The reframing is like is not about the destination. It's about the journey. Like I'm legit curious about everything that's coming up for Daryl and me. Curious, like investigative, but like playful, you know. Those words, not like dreading or, worried or, all these things that, and people will put it on you. Like I've had so many people say to me, like, girl, it's just year one, just wait. Yeah. But these are unhappy people with no tools to manage their relationships. So, you said projection earlier. That's what it is. You're projecting onto me your experience.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, my experience is different.
Yeah. So, is there one thing that you can leave folks that are listening who love what you're saying, who's interested in this journey, who wants to turn into being investigative and curious from being worried and anxious? Is there one thing you can leave with folks?
Let me leave two. Sound
Okay.
healing. Sound healing. I got the going right behind me. Can you see it?
Oh, I see it.
Sound healing and mindfulness. Mindfulness is what transforms the perspective.
All right. Well, Meg, thank you so. I appreciate you. I appreciate your transparency. I appreciate your story. I appreciate you sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. And this is such a dope platform. So keep going, keep inspiring, girl.
All right. Thank you. This is the Good Girl Podcast.